Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the Q1 2026 financial and operational report for Summit Therapeutics. Our goal? To unpack the absolute, undeniable momentum behind their flagship investigational drug, ivonescimab. You know, if you follow the oncology space, you already know that shifting the standard of care is notoriously difficult. But based on this recent quarter, Summit is putting massive resources behind doing exactly that.
Now, before we even touch the underlying science, just wrap your head around this staggering number. Over 70,000. That's over 70,000 patients who have already been treated with this drug in the commercial setting in China through Summit's partner, Akeso. In the world of clinical development, getting that kind of real-world validation of a safety and efficacy profile right out of the gate is incredibly rare. It gives us this massive foundation of data before the global trials even fully read out.
To guide us through all of this, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll meet ivonescimab. Second, we'll break down the Harmony trials. Third, we'll look at global collaborations. Fourth is financial health. And finally, the road ahead.
All right, let's start with section 1. Meet ivonescimab.
So what exactly is ivonescimab? Well, it's what's known as a bispecific antibody, which is a specifically engineered tetravalent molecule. Instead of giving a patient two totally separate drugs, it combines immunotherapy via a PD-1 blockade with anti-angiogenesis effects. Basically, it starves the tumor by blocking the blood vessels that feed it. And all of this is engineered right into a single molecule for a highly targeted two-pronged attack on cancer cells. The real secret sauce here is its unique cooperative binding. By design, this tetravalent structure, which just means it has 4 distinct binding sites, displays a multifold higher affinity to PD-1 when it's in the presence of VEGF. Why does that matter for us? Because both PD-1 and VEGF are highly expressed in the tumor microenvironment compared to normal healthy tissue. This structure essentially directs the drug specifically to the tumor tissue. Plus, with a steady-state half-life extending to about 10 days, the goal is to improve upon the side effects and safety profiles we typically see with older single-target drugs. Moving on to Section 2, the Harmony trials. Summit is casting a very deep, aggressive footprint right now. First up, there's the Harmony trial, which focuses on EGFR-mutated non-small cell lung cancer and actually already has an FDA PDFA date set. Then we have Harmony 3 and Harmony 7, both targeting first-line non-small cell lung cancer. And if we look beyond lung cancer, Harmony GI3 highlights their strategic expansion into first-line unresectable colorectal cancer. They are casting a really wide strategic net here. And speaking of Harmony 3, there's a fascinating recent update regarding its squamous cohort. Summit had originally planned an early interim progression-free survival analysis. But because it was an early look, the statistical bar for success was set sky high. So, the crucial takeaway here is that during this early analysis, the Independent Data Monitoring Committee reviewed the data and recommended that the study continue exactly as planned. No safety concerns were noted whatsoever, and the trial remains double-blinded. That gives us even more validation of the drug's safety profile while we wait for the final data.
Let's look at Section 3, global collaborations.
Summit definitely isn't going at this alone. Major players are validating ivonescimab's potential by bringing it into their own ecosystems. For instance, Revolution Medicines is currently evaluating it in combination with the RAS(ON) inhibitors. Then you have a giant like GSK, combining it with their novel B7H3 targeted therapy in solid tumors. We also have Gordek, a major European cooperative group, sponsoring a 780-patient phase 3 study called Illuminate in head and neck squamous cell carcinoma. All of this proves that this drug isn't just a one-trick pony for lung cancer. It's quickly becoming a foundational combination therapy across multiple tumor types. Let's switch gears to Section 4, financial health. You might notice a pretty huge jump in GAAP R&D expenses, going from $51.2 million in Q1 2025 up to $132.6 million in Q1 2026, and immediately start to worry. But we need to frame this correctly. A huge chunk of that increase was actually a non-cash charge tied to modifications in stock-based compensation. More importantly, the underlying non-GAAP R&D increase, that is the exact fuel required for initiating and aggressively expanding all those late-stage phase 3 clinical trials we were just talking about. The report also notes a GAAP net loss of $189.4 million for the quarter. Again, this is largely driven by the sheer scale of their clinical study expansion, the development costs for ivonescimab, and those stock-based comp modifications. Look, building a potential new standard of care in oncology is inherently capital-intensive. What we're seeing here reflects a company in absolute full execution mode.
But honestly, the ultimate takeaway for their financial stability boils down to this number: $598.7 million. They are sitting on nearly $600 million in cash, cash equivalents, and short-term investments. In the biotech space, you know that cash is oxygen. This massive war chest provides Summit with a highly robust runway to execute their broad clinical vision without immediately needing to hit the pause button just to raise capital. Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, the road ahead. Let's see how all this momentum builds over the year. First, on May 31st, 2026, we have a highly anticipated ASCO plenary session featuring overall survival data from the HARMONIZE-6 trial in China. Following that, in the second half of 2026, we'll get the final progression-free survival data for the HARMONIZE-3 squamous cohort. And then, the absolute crown jewel of the year, November 14, 2026. That is the FDA PDUFA goal action date for the original HARMONIZE trial. So yeah, 2026 is shaping up to be an absolutely catalyst-packed year for Summit. So it all leads to this one big question. Will ivonescimab become the new standard of care? When you combine unprecedented real-world data from over 70,000 patients in China, an incredibly aggressive global phase 3 footprint, deep-pocketed collaboration partners, and a massive November FDA decision date looming on the horizon, the stage is completely set. We are literally watching a company attempting to rewrite the oncology playbook in real time. So what do you think? Keep a close eye on those data readouts, and thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.